Hey guys, today we'll be taking a look at a couple of mocks and a couple of very minor revamps, but I also wanted to say, can we talk about Generation 2 Bionicle for a minute? I don't want to get too heavy on the topic, but I think there's a specific reason why it failed outside of like budgeting and advertising and stuff like that, but given the toys themselves, why they may not have sold as well as I think they should have. And so we're gonna look at one of those. First off, we're just gonna pull up Galley Master specifically because I think if I asked the question, which character you thought worked better, Galley Master's color scheme or Galley Uniter's color scheme, I think most people in my audience would probably say Galley Uniter, right? Her color scheme is very striking with the orange and dark azure, and I think that that is a good point. However, I actually think that the yellow is the better color scheme, and I'll tell you why. This is an opinion, first of all, but let's go ahead and look at Galley Master for a minute. How many parts on this character are yellow? Honestly, not that many. It's basically just the Technic connectors in her weapon and the printing on her body. I guess you could argue that the spear in her weapon, it's gold technically, but you could say it falls in line with that color scheme. But Galley Uniter has a very specific aesthetic, and in fact, you can even see it here, using the orange asymmetric armor as armor on the character, and I think that's why it works better for her, because she just incorporates it into her build and not just into her weapon and printing. Here's the thing though, just changing a handful of pieces on Galley Uniter to pieces that existed in 2015, you could make this. This is just basically Galley Uniter all over again, but with a heavier emphasis on gunmetal as her primary metallic color, as well as yellow incorporated into the legs here with the armor kind of going around it, which looks very nice, and incorporated into the spikes on the shoulders, or on the abs here as well as on the shoulders. And that's it, essentially. That's really all of the changes that have been made to this character. It's what, 3 or 4 more pieces, 5 more pieces, I guess, if you include the spikes. But even ignoring all of that, this looks aesthetically really nice. Now, it does have a yellow eye stalk in there that's a bootleg. We're going to ignore that. Lime green works great on her. I don't mind it at all. But the other reason I think that this works out really well is this leans into the fact that she's got this kind of scuba diver aesthetic, right? She's got these goggles over the mask here. She's not just a water character, but she's like a scuba character. And yellow, black, and blue are all really popular colors for like scuba suits. So it leans into that heavily as well. The yellow sets off the gunmetal here really nicely. I just think it's better here. So this, and the thing is, I could build this character with orange too. All of these pieces that I used in yellow, I believe all of them exist in orange as well. So, like, the option is there. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is like, the character changes between their master and uniter appearance, and I don't think that that's a bad thing in and of itself, but it shows you that LEGO doesn't really, it didn't feel like they knew exactly what they wanted to do with the characters between each wave. Like, they wanted the characters to look new, to introduce new parts, but they didn't understand why it worked or what aspects of the character that existed previously worked in the future. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that very well. And I think it's an issue because when you've got a character like Tahu Master here, which has been slightly updated, but you can ignore the updates, and you look at his color scheme, red with a bit of gold, a little bit of orange printing on that gold, which is pretty subdued. It's remarkable that they put it on there, but I'm glad they did. And even a metallic pink, which is a really brave choice and obviously reflects the pink from his eyes in Generation 1. This character looks good. It looks iconic. It looks refreshing. It is a new take on the character. He's obviously bulkier than he was in 2001. He has silver weapons, so he feels like he's somewhere in line of being like a Gen 2 interpretation of Tahu Mata and Tahu Nuva in a way. Now, I will say that the gold feels a little bit off on this character just because I think it should be reserved for special characters in Bionicle specifically, but ignoring that, if we then take a look at his Uniter appearance, this is a disaster. Here's the thing. I don't hate it. I think he has this sort of like Aztec warrior god kind of appearance, which I know probably is some cultural appropriation on my part, and I do apologize for that. That's a flaw in myself. But outside of that, it has a very aesthetically cool look to it, especially when you put the creature on the back. But ignoring that, But you suddenly get this dark azure in here. You lose out a lot of red. You lean into the gold further, making this character feel even more like the leader than he should. I know that Tahu is the leader of the Toa, but should he feel that way? You know, like make that come across in the character, not the aesthetic. Like it's weird. That's all I'm saying. In character design, to make the main character be like, oh, also, by the way, like Tahu was still the leader of the Toa Nuva, and yet Taka Nuva had gold. You see what I'm getting at there? Anyway, point being, across all of this stuff as well, the character is a lot more disjointed. I'm not going to critique the character in terms of the build itself. The point I'm trying to make is the alienation, the differences between this and his master form, because it's apparent, it's striking. It's not a good representation of this character, in my opinion. And I do think that this is not a hard thing to change. For one thing, lose the gold and subdue, minimize the amount of silver even on the character. Give him red feet, give him, red armor in places, make the torso silver or red if you want to, and then use silver in the printing here. Use orange in the printing. Bring the metallic pink back if you want to. You could even use pink Borak eyes instead of dark azure, and I think all of that would stand out and make the character look really impressive and not alienate the character in the way that this does. Because a lot of people, even when the Uniters came out, they were controversial, right? And I don't think that opinion has really changed. There are some Uniters that have grown on me a bit more as time has gone on. I don't really care for the waist function. I don't care for the height too much. It's neat that they can combine with, creatures and stuff like that. Like, that's cool, but it doesn't work in my opinion. Moving further, though, also look at it from what you could do with characters in Generation 1 versus Generation 2, right? If you look at just 2001 from G1, you got 98 different masks, unique masks that came out in 2001, and that's probably missing a couple. That is including the European misprints, it is including the Rahi masks, it is including the McDonald's Matoran, but outside of that and the mask packs, what did G2 give you? Well, throughout its entirety, it gave you 60 masks. That's pretty generous still, but it's nowhere near, obviously, what we got in just 1 year of Bionicle, and that's to be expected. The budgeting is a thing here. But if you want this line to succeed, maybe it's worth taking that risk, right? They did so with Bionicle, and it did work. That's not to say it would work. It's not to say you could capture lightning in a bottle twice, but how many of the masks from G1 from 2001 were ambiguous, were solid colors that didn't belong to a specific character? Basically all of them. The only mask that was dual colored, if you want to call it that, is the Infected Howl from 2001. That's it. Versus, if you look at Generation 2, its entirety, of the 60 masks that came out, how many were solid colors, non-metallic, non-dual molded? It's just 12, and 6 of those come with the Uniters, with the Master sets. Now, with the argument for the Uniters having at the very least neutral colored dual molded masks, yeah, it makes sense. They can be used, but how many solidly red masks came out in Generation 2? 1. How many solidly white? 1. Solidly black, solidly blue, it's 1 mask for each of them. That's not great. Now, this is also including the Comic-Con masks in that 12. So several of these masks are rare. It is also including like the trans orange but like at the end of the day, it's bad, because if I went to the store in 2001 and I bought, say, a mask pack for 2001 pricing right off store shelves, and I pulled out a medium blue and a tan mask, well, I have incentive now to go buy Pohatu and go buy Gali or one of the Taraga or whatever, right? And that's easy enough. I swapped the masks as a little kid, and that might be enough to convince me that it's a brand new character, right? But I could go even further than that and take the tan limbs and throw it on Gali, take the medium blue limbs and throw it on Pohatu, give him a medium blue mask, give Gali a tan mask, maybe change up the build a little bit, and now I don't just have a recolor, I have a brand new Toa Mata, right? That's how easy it was, and you could do that with just three purchases, less than $20 back in 2001. And on top of that, even if you bought another Toa or another mask pack, suddenly you can do way more because it's exponential growth there. You can't do that with the Bionicles from Generation 2. It doesn't help that the Masters and the Protectors use the same color schemes for the most part. Like, there's not really a primary secondary color kind of thing going on here, which I think was a strength of Bionicle back in 2001. But it also limits your builds further because now you have less color choices. You have more specialized masks. Some of the masks that I include in those solid colors are like the Skull Spider mask, and those belong to like evil characters. They don't look like good guy masks. Now, you can use them on, like, say, a good guy witch doctor or something. You can do it. You can make it work. The same is true for the Mask of Creation in trans light blue. It looks legendary. It doesn't feel like it fits a Toa or a Matoran figure, and except for a specific figure. So that's essentially what I'm getting at. There's less overall incentive to create with Generation 2. And I think that is probably the most important aspect of Bionicle that was missed. You weren't told to create things. You were told to build things out of the box. The combination models far and away were, hey, throw these two things together, maybe do some minimal changes. Lego dumbed down Bionicle for Generation 2, and in a way that disrespected the audience, in a way that alienated their own characters. And I don't even think they knew they were doing it. And I think that's the worst part. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It does really help out the channel. We're trying to get to 1,500 subscribers by December 12th, so hopefully we can get there. And on top of that, links for Instagram and Patreon and Discord all in the description below. Consider, I guess, donating, and you will get some perks on Patreon. You can go find out about that there. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.